Okay, we're all good on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Matt, you can go ahead and get started.
Right. Before calling this meeting to order, I'd like to ask that all commissioners please refrain from using the chat feature on Zoom. All questions should be made publicly unless it's a computer connectivity issue. Kule, would you mind doing a Kule before we start?
Aloha mai. Sure. Hiki no. O malu kākou no ka pule a e pule no hoi kākou. Au hea oi e ka hako o mako ka mako alani. Ia no vau I mua o ko mako wahi kupuna me na au makua me na kini akua o mako me kia noi. He noi haa ke ia oko e maliu mai I ka mako hana. Ma o ke ia hana ma ke ano he Cultural Resource Commission. No na kānaka na poe no hoi I kauai maluna o ke ia papa alakai pili me na kanaka o ke aupuni he hana nui, he hana koi no hoi. E no ku uwahi noi e maliu mai a mako I ko mako no me ka maikai me ka pono no hoi o ko kako aina. I ola no hoi ka uiwi a ko mako aina a pau ko Hawaiʻi pai aina. No leila mahalo hoi no ke ia mau kanaka a me ke ia halawai nei. No ke ia wā ke kahi a mako e no I na mea he nui, na po mai ka I he nui he leo mahalo. He leo pule, he leo aloha no hoi a mama ua noa, lele ke ia pule. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Aloha mai kako. Good morning, everyone. The hybrid meeting of the Cultural Resource Commission will now come to order. Quorum has been established with, I believe, 5 members in attendance. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Today is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. It is now 10:09 a.m. Pursuant to Act 220, Sessions Laws of Hawaii 2021, which amended the Sunshine Law to allow meetings to be remotely conducted online effective January 1st, 2022, the Cultural Resources Commission will host a hybrid meeting of online and in-person participants. An in-person location has been identified on the agenda for the public to provide testimony on agenda items and to view the meeting. This meeting can also be viewed live online. A link to the YouTube live stream is provided on the county website. The video recording will remain on the YouTube channel for those who are not able to watch it live. Reports and surveys reviewed during this hearing are available on the county website. Commissioners, please be reminded that only one person may speak at a time. Raise your hand to be recognized if you have a question or comment. Commissioners, please introduce yourselves and report if others are present in your location. I see Kealoha. Can you start, please?
Yep. Morning. It's Kealoha Nui Punakini, and no one is present in my home site.
All right, Commissioner Spielman.
Hi, Commissioner Spielman here, and no one's present with me now, but my wife might walk through at some point.
Kule.
Aloha pumehana, I'm Ku'ule Kealani, and no one is at home with me. Mahalo.
Okay. Actually, I believe I saw Desmond for a sec. Aloha, Desmond, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Aloha. Good morning, everybody.
Aloha. Could you let us know that if anyone is with you?
Just my 2 cats.
You cats. Okay. And I think I see our newest commissioner, Janet Six, in the live there. Can you please introduce yourself, Janet?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dr. Janet Six, and I wear sunglasses because the fluorescent lights bother my eyes. I have eye issues, and I'm here with Ashley, Kim, and Kevin. Somebody else here?
Great. So we actually have 6 members in attendance today. And CRC staff support joining us today are Kevin Sullivan, planner, Kim Tanaka, planner, Ashley DeVera, board secretary, and Jean Campbell, deputy corporation counsel. Pursuant to HRS 92.3, interested persons who want to provide oral testimony may do so either at the beginning of the meeting when the board takes public statements on the agenda or immediately before the specific agenda item is called. Staff, please indicate if there are any members of the public wishing to provide testimony online or in person today.
There are,
Yes.
go ahead.
Cindy Freitas.
Aloha, Cindy. Can you hear us?
Aloha. Yes.
Would you like to provide public testimony now
Yes.
or wait to before the agenda item?
No.
Okay.
They can take my.
And Claire LaPrenzi is having a hard time on her stuff. Is she can, and she's with me. Can
Mhm.
she do her testimony too?
I believe that's fine.
Okay.
Can I give my 3 minutes to you too?
Okay. Oh, you ready?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
E mele komo a he mele aloha na nā kupuna I ka au I hala. Aloha mai kako. Aloha, my name is Cindy Freitas. I'm a Native Hawaiian descendant of the native inhabitants of Hawaii prior to 1778. Born and raised in Oahu, also a practitioner, and we practice from a young age, from Mauka to Makai, mountain to sea.
Progress.
I'm in up.
Yeah.
I'm in up.
Oh, shit.
Hold on.
Exit.
I think if you can turn off the sound on the other computer.
Yes.
The microphone.
Hold on.
Don't do that. I was just testing this online. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I think if you press mute, there you go, that should work.
Okay.
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, I'm in opposition for the following reason. La'ipala Makai Plan Unit Development will have 65 lot single-family residential subdivision at the location of A'opua North Kona District, Hawaii, Big Island. Culture significance. Please see the archaeologist report from Alan Hunt and Associate that was dated January 2006. There's 172 sites recorded in his archaeologist report, consisting of mounds, platforms, wall, blister, caves, permanent habitation, and burial sites, ceremony terraces, and etc. Also, endangered species that lives in that area. Eo, the Hawaiian hawk that lives above 1,000 to 8,530 feet, which is endangered on the state and federal level. The pueo is another endangered species that live in that area that is found mainly on the Hawaiian Islands, sea level to 2,450 feet above the sea level. Alala, or Hawaiian crow, is another endangered species that found in the area above the sea level. Oma'o is another species that's endangered that is also found in that area of the northern and southern and eastern slopes as well. The endangered plant, uhi, is another endangered plant that is found in dry areas, would also be in the location of that vicinity of the development. And other plants as well. Constructions of this
The Constitution of State of Hawaii, Article 5, Article 12, Section 7. As cultural practitioners, we have a right to practice, gather in that area, which we do a lot. And Act 50 is another one from the state legislation in 2000 with House Bill 295. There is a need to clarify that the preparation of environmental assessment or environmental impact statement should identify and address effects on Hawaiian culture, traditional and customary rights. Act 16 enact legislation in 2020 with SB number 2060, protect, preserve, and where desirable, restore those natural and historic and prehistoric resources in the coastal zone management area that are significant in the Hawaiian and American history and culture. HRS, most important, 7/11/1107, desecration. Anytime you desecrate a place of worship, which is in that area as a culture practitioner, it would outrage the people, which it has already from way back in 2022 in that meeting with Hawaiʻi One Investment, formerly known as Kona Heights LLC. All these investors who put money into this land, they need to understand the Hawaiian culture as well. Not only that, they have influx of sewer issues here. There is no sewer hookup over there yet.
3 minutes is up.
Okay, and there is the water issue. We as Hawaiian Homestead, I'm still waiting for my Hawaiian Homestead 45 years later. We don't have water credits. So I cannot see how these foreigners or people from out of state has the upper hand to get that water credit when we were waiting so long for. So that's another issue. Sewer, traffic, water credits, let alone all that flood things that comes down in that area, the water runoff. You cannot contaminate the water runoff that goes into the ocean because that's what feeds our fish, the planktons. So all that chemical, whatever they're doing is going into the mix. That's another no-no. So thank you for your time. And I mahalo you guys for what you're doing. Ahuiho.
Ahuiho. Mahalo. Any other members of the public wishing to provide testimony at this time?
Yes, we do have another Claire.
Yeah.
Claire.
Aloha, Claire. Are you ready?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Claire Cohen. No, I am an indigenous practitioner. No Kule knows me very well. 51 years of helping babies be in birthing, and La'aloa has already had a lot of devastation towards cultural practices, customary and traditional cultural practices. The heiaus for birth have been removed. It's a no-brainer. I mean, this desecration of the impact of Io Kanaka Aina, that is so important. That's a basis of all law. That comes from the Moors, which is my bloodline. But who were here thousands of years ago in the first voyagers. And besides, the contamination, there's so few places. These historical districts needs to be preserved. These areas where the heiaus are, the birthing, Hapaiali'i is not too far away from there. La'aloa, the heiau over there. But more than that, you have all these people that are coming in, and besides the sewage, my son's an ER doctor over at Kona. And it's like, you can't even get, you have to med back. These people are usually older, but even on the healthcare issue, you can't even get, there's one place, you have to wait from Kapiolani to come over and med back. It's already so full, but on a level for generational trauma, this is continuously just bombarding indigenous peoples. It's the places already, are already being sold off and illegally. Highcrest has been removed from some of our sites and on our complaints. The shifty doe care, there's just too much of nobody even watching. So these places need to be there. There are so few places for tangible and intangible. And besides, how many thousands of graves are there? And I'm going to say thousands of graves are there. And then who are the archaeologists that are going to come in and just rubber stamp it? Because that's what's happening. And we've been fighting on this area for a long time. So this area there are so few places. These areas need to be saved. And I believe it is your kuleana to do that. If you don't have customary and traditional cultural practices, I can just say that just for birth. How many women don't get raped and abused in birth? How many women get to have hanau? These places are essential for it. This generational trauma is just going to be more and more and more. And our children need it. We need to clean up even the Hawaiian associations that are investing money in these places. The Kukini Wall. How many burials are underneath that Kukini Wall? And who are they? They're the babies. So I'm asking you all to just absolutely not, for all the reasons that Cindy has mentioned, and the safety and the welfare. We're seeing things that are going on down there, right near there. You can look there at La'aloa on the other side of the beach, when they disrupted the heiau over there, when they now want to have all these places for tourists to come and watch. And like, those places are kapu. It's like coming into your bedroom, when you're birthing. These places are kapu. They're not for tourists. These are some of the few places where it's lined up astrologically. That's why you got the equinoxes, the solstices. Those places came to for a reason. You need to keep people out of there. It's the money is not going to help the traffic. It's already just horrendous. Like she said, the sewage. It's 1.5 million gallons of feces is going into Honokahau Harbor every single day. And there's no solution because you cannot.
3 minutes is up.
Aloha. I guess that's.
You can finish. If you want to finish up, I was just letting you know that.
No, I look at each one of you, and I look at you, whoever is making these decisions, to not be bought off, to not be sold off, to understand the importance of this area, of La'aloa, of Ali'i Drive. And it's an absolute no. And just all the problems that are already affecting us all on a medical level, on a traffic level, on a feces level, and mostly for the next generations that are coming to have more impact on their generational trauma. Okay, mahalo.
Mahalo, Claire.
The one other testifier, I believe, is Simi McMichael.
Aloha, Simi. Are you ready to provide testimony? Hello, Simi, are you there? Can you hear us?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, if you could ask them to
Did you unmute me?
turn on their video.
Yeah, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank
Do you
you.
have video that you can provide?
I can see you, but I can turn on the camera. Coach asked you to start your video. Okay, start. Can I just speak my 3 minutes? How do you do this? This is complicated.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You have 3
So,
minutes.
aloha. My name is Simi McMichael. I'm a resident of this area, and my ancestors are also of this area. We go way back with King Kalakaua, who was the caretaker of this agricultural land. This is a sacred area, and I plead with you to protect it as a landscape, as it was and it should always be. Hanaho, that this is on the agenda now. When we were back in 2022 testifying against this project, much is happening in our lands of this area, especially the concerns of Kahalu Bay. Tomorrow there's a meeting at the county in Kona, and what you do, Mauka, will affect Makai. And this meeting is going to be held with the U.S. Army Corps, the Hawaii County Parks and Rec, and Kohala Center. There's flooding, erosion, pollution, sea level rising, and we do not need to desecrate our sacred land. It's our kuleana to save Iwi Kupuna, well beneath this sacred land of burials of my ancestors. And we are blessed from Lake Waiʻau for agriculture. And I have testimony of Lily Ha'anio Kong regarding to Lake Waiʻau, who feeds all the water to our lands. The reason why it was the most popular agriculture is because once our plants are rooted, you don't need to water. But you keep desecrating and allowing desecration, this will not allow the flow. We need to preserve it for our now and next generation, because once it's gone, you can't restore it. You know, Kahalu'u, Kamehameha tried to restore what they destroyed at Kona Lagoon in Keho. But the words of the Kailua or Kahalu'u historical in their registry of federal and state registry reads the words spiritual factors. We need to respect what's here. And I truly believe mana is real. And it has stopped many projects of bankruptcy. So with this, we need to celebrate our land of landscape. And as this was said in testimony at the Cultural Resources Commission meeting, when I fought the 306 timeshares next door, that Teresa Durham, I have high respects of her saying that when are we going to celebrate this land for landscape? And when I started this contested case next door of 306 timeshares, I met with Kamehameha School and I said, what are you going to do here with this big pohaku? And this was stirred the whole thing. I was steered to meet with Alan Hahn. Alan Hahn said, it's not unusual what you're saying. This is like Hokulia. I said, what do you mean? And he says, give me your email. The file was so thick, so he was able to get me the hard copy. And when I saw what was there and how hidden it was, it tore me apart inside out. I went to the Cultural Resources Commission meeting, and some of you were there. I don't know what, but it made me broke down in tears of what was going to be destroyed. I had Mitchell Fujisaka come and testify, explain how he did burials, and Antilili Ha'anio Kong. So the maps are mapped out with Mitchell and the Kahulamu. And the Kahulamu is to this land also. The last words of Willie was fight. You have
3
my
minutes is up.
mahalo. Please help us protect. You are in charge. You have the strength to do this for us. We can speak all we want and we can pray all we want, but you are our link. So please focus, connect, with mana and keakua. They are real, and I believe in them. And once you connect, you will get guidance also. Mahalo.
Mahalo.
I believe that's all the testifiers, public testifiers. I believe the remaining attendees are with the applicant, Matt and Ken, correct? You're with Darren, right? Okay. So that's all the public testifiers we have signed up right now.
Okay, I think that means we can get down to the business of the commission.
Yes.
Okay, agenda item number 1, cultural impact assessment report, Laʻipala Makai Planned Unit Development, PL CRC 2024-000019. This is a review of a cultural impact assessment report developed in support of planning applications for the proposed Laʻipala Makai Planned Unit Development, a 65-lot single-family residential subdivision located in Kapala Alaea, 2nd Aupua'a, North Kona District, TMK 377008121. I guess I would like to say disclose that I did work on this cultural impact assessment for the applicants, and I should probably recuse myself from these discussions, but I can help facilitate the conversation and provide information, I believe. Is that correct, Jean?
Sorry, recusal generally means stepping out of the meeting.
Oh, okay. Is that appropriate then?
Yes, it sounds like if you worked on it, that probably would be appropriate.
Okay. Then at this time, I'll turn it over to the staff for presentation, and I can listen but turn off my video. Is that? Or just...
Yeah, I guess so. Typically, you would hand the conduct of the meeting over to the vice chair, and they would run the meeting in your absence.
Okay. The vice chair is not here today.
Right. In that case, to somebody who would be willing to volunteer.
I suppose Aaron is the former chair, or Kealoha, are you volunteering?
Well, I had a question though. If we had questions about the assessment, could we ask Matt a question?
I think it would probably be more appropriate to ask the applicant, and then, usually recusal means that you step out of the meeting altogether and you just don't participate.
Okay. Yes, Desmond.
Because of the sensitive nature of this project, and because we're not Cultural Resource Commission, I believe Matthew should stay, but void from voting on any decisions made regarding this project. But since he was the one that actually worked on the project, who was intimate relationships with this project, that recusal is not part of a Hawaiian cultural terminology. Everybody included in this, and I think his input is going to be important in the decision making in this process. I move that he stays. Sorry, Gene.
I will leave that decision up to Jean. I don't want to set any boundaries.
To be honest, I am not your decision maker. I simply am here to provide advice. And so the commission can do what the commission wants to. I would suggest perhaps getting input from the applicant would be another good place to go on that.
Okay. Would Darren or anyone from the applicant like to provide any input?
This is Darren Arai. I'm a planning consultant assisting the applicant Hawaii One with this SMA and a change of zone amendment request. I am not comfortable speaking on the matter of whether or not the chair should recuse himself, simply because, again, that resides actually with the chair. As I understand it correctly, people should not be making decisions for him. He should actually be making his own decision based on protocol and ethics requirements. However, I will do my best to try to provide information regarding the work product that ASM affiliates have provided. And if you feel at that time that further clarification is needed, maybe if you keep the scope of the question directly related to the information contained within the CIA, maybe that's a better way of handling it. But in the end, I think I'll have to defer to the chair on what he thinks is appropriate.
I'd like to hear from the commissioners. If it's a COPCO decision.
All right, mahalo, Uncle, for bringing this up. I think it is, when you look at those words, conflict of interest, I think in the Kuanaʻike Hawaiʻi, there's a reasonable, what you call mana'o of having certain people in certain places. And instead of looking at it as a conflict of interest, it's an essential interest. Is kind of how I look at things, right? Sometimes those are the very people that should be speaking into this or should be seated on the table. But in some viewpoints, it's a conflict of interest. And so I would agree that if Matt does have information, being a part of the ground crew that did the studies, perhaps the interviews, but right, we're looking at some old documents too, 2006, and maybe Matt with ASM is kind of one of the more updated, but that would be my view, is that instead of a conflict of interest, it's an essential interest. So I would kako'o the thought of Matt being there. Of course, I that's why we have Jean, right? And those folks to let us know what's in the parameters of the law. But I think we bring out the perspective within the cultural realm of things that this is, and I use my own words, like essential interest as opposed to a conflict of interest. But that's my mana'o. And whatever way it goes is, I don't want to step out of the legalities, getting anybody in any sort of trouble, but I do believe that the information Matt has and knows on the project, we've had other things come onto our plates where I've been consulted with. Commissioner Keaka has been, contacted, and we were, I'm losing the word. What is the word? When you are consulted with, there you go, that's the word, consulted. So kind of along those lines, right, that there's, so yeah, I think that's my mana'o. I hope I was clear. Mahalo.
We might take a short recess to let Matt take a look at the county code where it does deal with conflicts of interest. Technically, you folks are not either employees or officers of the county, because the definition of officers would include decision-making boards and commissions, and this board makes recommendations rather than actual firm decisions. But the 2-84 is the conflicts of interest section, and that's within the code of ethics section of the county code. And it would be advisory as to you all, but it does give you at least a little bit of a legal framework if you want to take a look at that.
Legal. Yeah, I just want to add that, I know Matt personally, and in his work, he's very passionate in his work. And through a cultural lens, he put his mana into this work, which gives him a voice and an ear and a good, clean heart, which is not being correct for all of our cultural practices. So for me, because of his mana into this project, he's a cultural essential, to quote Ku'ole. But yeah, recess is fine.
Oh, mahalo, Desmond. I did see Janet with her hand up.
Yeah, hi. So for those of you who don't know me, full disclosure, I'm a county archaeologist for Maui County, and I was on the CRC on Maui for 5 years, chairs too. I've been living over here for 5 years. And I know Matt, not personally, but through his work. And I work with ASM. I've been working a lot with Lahaina Fire. And just not everyone is equally, has the mana'o and the mana. So when you have someone who's getting paid for work, there's always a conflict of interest in the sense that you're paid for an outcome. I'm not saying that Matt would deliver a non-professional outcome, but on Maui, we see some outcomes being delivered by different archaeologists that are very disingenuous. So I know that you folks know, Matt, if you're comfortable with that, but for me, as working on the CRC on Maui, we would not allow someone who's worked on a project, they would have to recuse themselves. So that's just the way that they did it on Maui. And again, I trust you folks. I'm new, but I am very familiar with this project. I have access to all the state archaeological SHPD information. And so I did all my due diligence prior to coming to this meeting regarding known sites. I also looked at the 2006 AIS that was done for the parcel below. So I'm just letting you know that's just kind of the way it comes in. And again, it depends on the individual who's coming before the CRC, but I don't know if we can pick one person because we like the work that person does, and then maybe someone else comes that work maybe that. But again, on Maui, we have a lot of problem with people delivering outcomes for developers. And I'm not saying that's what's happening with AMS. I'm just saying that's something that we really are concerned with when we deal with work on Maui. So thanks.
And I guess to follow on what Commissioner Six told you, simply finding that there is a conflict does not mean that you are making a judgment call as to the work that Matt did. A conflict simply says because somebody was sitting in this seat as a paid consultant, there is a conflict. It's not by any means a suggestion that the work is questionable. As Commissioner Six noted, there are other cases where sometimes you probably do. We all know you can probably pay somebody to get the result that you want. And simply saying because you were paid for your work doesn't suggest that that has happened. It is simply an acknowledgement that because you were paid for work, you probably are not the appropriate person. And as Commissioner Six noted, it is important to be consistent in how you make these determinations. And so saying we like Matt, we trust Matt, he should be here, makes it much more difficult should you be faced with a situation where you do have a report from somebody that you find questionable, to fairly say, we're going to apply the rules differently in this situation. So for your consideration.
I just want to add to that, all of the commissioners here, we are lifelong cultural practitioners. So I see looking through things through a legal lens and all that what we face with today. But all the commissioners here are cultural practitioners. So we'll view things through a cultural view. And I believe that's why we were appointed to this position. That's all. I call for a recess.
I'm not a cultural practitioner, but I've lived in Hawaii since 1978, and I currently am employed by the Oiwi division at the County of Maui under the director Kuponoai, Moitau, and Kikai Robinson. So I'm very mindful of the culture, but I'm going to say I am not a cultural practitioner. I am an archaeologist by training, but I have lived in Hawaii a long time, and I have fought for sites on Maui for years. And I was very interested in coming here. I did my PhD research in Ka'u at Hilea. I taught at UH Hilo. So while I'm not a cultural practitioner, I do have an understanding of the complexities of working in the state of Hawaii. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you, Commissioner Haumea.
Matthew, call for a recess, please.
I will call for a short recess so that Jean, can you refresh me of the rules again that I need to look at?
It is section 2-84. The Code of Ethics begins at, 2-79, and the definitions are 2- blah, 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 82. And then, what did I say? Fair treatment, I guess, is probably worth taking a look at. That's 2-83. And then the actual conflict of interest section is 2-84. And you can find all of those on the county's website under the county code. It's under chapter 2, obviously, administration.
I guess I will call for a short 5-minute recess. Is that all right with everybody? Thank you. Mahalo. I appreciate everyone's input.
Looks like we're back.
Okay.
And I just noting, we had somebody else join the meeting, Janet Matlock. She may or may not be here for public testimony, but we haven't closed that yet. So once we deal with this issue, and I guess assign a new chair if we need to, we can talk to Janet.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah,
hand it
thank
over to
you.
you and Jean.
We're good to go. Yeah, and mahalo for everyone's input. Mahalo Desmond for requesting that I stay. I think in this case, to avoid any idea of conflict of interest, I am going to recuse myself from this agenda item. And I'm hoping that perhaps Aaron, you would, as the former chair, you might be able to take over for me at this time.
Yeah, Matt, I'd be happy to, as long as the other commissioners are in agreement and, basically just stepping in for this one meeting. So I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Do we need a
And,
motion? And then do I just shut off the meeting and then join when this agenda item is over? Okay. All right, I am going to leave the meeting at this time. I will see you guys after this agenda item. Mahalo.
And can staff text or call Matt when the item's over, just to get him back online?
Yes.
Okay,
And we may, Uncle Des, are you still online? Uncle Des? We may have lost quorum with that move.
Are we at 6?
He's back.
I believe you have
Uncle Des,
5
you there?
still with
What happened? Sorry, I had to release my finals are done. I had to release my students early. They're happy.
That's fine. Are you going to be able to stay with us for the rest of the meeting, Uncle Des? Just checking.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
and my students are now.
All right, I retract the quorum statement.
sorry, Desmond. I reviewed. I think I'm going to recuse myself from this one. I really appreciate the
I figured you
vote of
would,
confidence.
but I
Mahalo.
thought that we needed to add that to the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
and
will be back after this agenda item.
just for the record, for 25 years I lived on Maui and fought with archaeologists there, preserving water rights in East Hawaii, East Maui, and also built that illegal halal.
I'll turn it over to you, Aaron.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Just stepping in for today's meeting and this particular agenda item. I don't have the script, staff. Where are we? And are we about to hear from the applicant? Is that correct?
So what I would say where we're at is we still need to close public testimony, but before doing that, let's give one last pass to anybody online that wishes to provide testimony. I believe Janet Matlock, would you like to provide testimony on this agenda item?
Yes, thank you. I would.
Okay.
And I'll be brief. My name is Janet Matlock, and I'm a resident of Kailua Kona. I live reasonably near where this proposed subdivision is sited, and I followed this issue for quite some time now. And I'm not sure of the testimony that's been given already, so my apologies if I am redundant to some of that. I was on another meeting and I'm late. Not sure exactly who to speak for here. I'm obviously Hawaiʻi transplant, but I do love this land, and being near it, I do have a chance to observe the pueo, the hawk, occasionally bats, and so speaking to the habitat loss, I think is very important culturally, because it nurtures all of us to be close to and a part of nature. Something else that's come up quite recently is that there's some attention being given to Ka'aluu Bay and the coral restoration, the degradation of the environment there. And I'm very concerned that more building in this area, even though I realize this is slightly north, the runoff, the impact, the lights, the additional traffic. And one thing that's talked about, which isn't really mentioned with traffic, that I think it's important to note is the runoff from tires is significant. You know how your tires get bald? Where does that go? It goes into the ground. It goes runoff into the ocean. So I just want to at this point say, consider the entire environment, consider the impacts on the greater culture around this area and on this land and in the ocean. And just want to strongly say we speak for a lot of neighbors that have testified before and will probably, when this does go back to the Planning Commission, will testify again. So mahalo for your time and your service. I really appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Staff, are there any other public testifiers at this time?
No. So you can close public testimony.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to close public testimony, and I'd like to open it up to the applicant, who I think Darren Arai is going to be leading that. Is that correct, Darren? Would you please introduce your team, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair Spearman. My name is Darren Arai, resident of Hilo. I'm a land use planning consultant assisting the applicant Hawaiʻi One with the SMA and rezoning amendment that's currently before you. Joining me today online is Matt Monsi, who is a project manager with Hawaiʻi One Investments, and is a consultant, Ken Van Bergen.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity. Happy holidays, everyone. I realize that there are commissioners who were not on board back in 2022 when this matter was first brought forth to the Cultural Resources Commission. So if you give me the latitude, I would like to maybe provide an overview of the history and some of the points of discussion. Would that be acceptable, Chair?
Staff are acceptable?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, as I mentioned, the focus of both the rezoning and SMA amendment requests is focus around a 5-year time extension in order for the project to secure final subdivision approval for a 62-lot single-family residential subdivision consisting of lots of basically around 3,000 to 6,500 square feet in size. Both the rezoning and SMA permits that support the project was issued in 2009 and required that first phase of the project be completed by 2019. However, in that time, the applicant, did ask that condition K of the change of zone ordinance be amended in order to allow drainage improvements required of the project to be bonded instead of constructed. Anyway, that's basically the scope. It was a time extension as well as clarification of infrastructure requirements. In the 7 years that since the purchase of the property, actually is way more now, the applicant has accomplished much in completing the subdivision as approved by the County Council and the Planning Commission. That included securing a plan unit development permit in 2016, which would allow certain zoning exceptions to the design of the project. They prepared an environmental assessment and secured a finding of no significant impact for the proposed La'aloa Park in 2018. And that park improvement was just in order to satisfy the applicant's recreational obligations within the change of zone ordinance that was approved. They were also able to secure a tentative subdivision approval for phase 1 of the project, which would include 18 lots, including approval of all the construction drawings for all the infrastructure that would support that particular phase. They also gained approvals in 2017 for the burial treatment plan, as well as the data recovery plan from SHPE. So even though you haven't seen much occurring on the ground, the applicant has done a tremendous amount of soft work until 2019 when they suddenly lost funding to proceed with the project. The time extension requested by the applicants is needed in order for them to then go to lenders in order to secure financing in order to complete the proposed subdivision. In April of 2022, the request for time extensions went before the Leeward Planning Commission. During those proceedings, the commission was requested the assistance of the Cultural Resource Commission in order to determine its impacts of the project upon the cultural landscape and whether those impacts can be adequately mitigated or minimized. Accompanying the applications or the request was a cultural impact assessment that was prepared in 2006. And the study really found that there was no apparent ongoing cultural resources or practices related to subsistence, residential, or religion occurring within the proposed project area, other than remains of sites or features typical of traditional ahupua'a lifestyle and use. The study, however, recommended that consultation occur with the Kahulamu and Nahale Ohana, both families that have ancestral ties to these lands, and they be afforded the opportunity to walk through the project site prior to any bulldozing or grading, and recommended that they be part of an advisory group related to the project. The study did caution, though, the possibility of inadvertently encountering unmarked burial of human remains, and that all applicable state laws regarding historic preservation be followed. Finally, some of the consulted parties expressed concerns over the density of the project, its affordability, and recommended that any future street names reflect the history of the names of people who once lived in the area, and highlighted the importance of having a completed burial treatment plan prior to any ground disturbing work. The applicant is willing to address all of those concerns and accommodate them as well. The Leeward Planning Commission also raised a question of whether the level of consultation with lineal descendants in the planning of the overall project was sufficient, and whether lineal descendant access issues have been fully considered by SHPE and resolved in the burial treatment plan, and whether additional lineal descendant access and open space requirements should be proposed or mitigated to minimize project impacts on the overall cultural landscape. Therefore, in June of the same year, 2022, the Cultural Resource Commission did review the 2006 CIA and archaeological reports and recommended that the applicant perform additional consultation with the lineal and cultural descendants from the proposed parcel and the neighboring ahupua'a. And while it was not a part of the formal recommendation, they did include a statement to the department that Commissioner Keakealani requested concerning testimonies regarding traffic, water usage, infrastructure, roadways, and the remnant nature of cultural resources in the area, as well as impact to the site and place. So with that information, the applicant then contracted ASM affiliates to conduct a second cultural impact assessment. And that report has not been provided to all of you for your review. And we're here today basically to ask the Cultural Resource Commission if the second updated cultural impact assessment fulfills the recommendation of the CRC that was made back in June of 2022. So I just want to briefly, well, maybe not briefly, but I want to summarize some of the effects of the project and some of the mitigating action, just to kind of provide a framework of why the applicant believes that it can properly mitigate the impacts that were identified. First of all, the project site is not within the Kahulu Historic District. It's located adjacent to the north. An archaeological inventory survey was prepared by Hahn & Associates in 2006. It was accepted by the State Historic Preservation Division, and it did identify 14 sites as significant for their information content. 9 sites were recommended for mitigation through data recovery, and 2 sites were recommended for preservation. And as previously mentioned, those preservation sites have been identified in a final data recovery plan and burial treatment plan that were accepted both both by SHPE as well as the Burial Council. The 2006 CIA did conclude that while evidence of ancient or traditional cultural practices still exists on the project land, there does not appear to be any evidence of any ongoing traditional cultural practices, except perhaps fishing, which, while not directly related to the project site, may indirectly impact this particular resource. The applicant themselves are not aware of any evidence demonstrating traditional and customary Native Hawaiian practices being conducted on the subject property. The 2024 CI update that was just prepared did consult with parties, with only one having genealogical ties to the Ahupua'a. All agreed that the implementation of the proposed project would intensify feelings of loss and contribute to the destruction of Kona's cultural heritage. Some felt that the density of the development would not allow for an appropriate level of protection for the cultural sites and urged for an alternative design. The updated study also noted the primary source of identified cultural impacts arise from the planned construction of a proposed road corridor on parcel 1, which is the parcel on the Makai side of this property, with potential impacts to burials and the Kuakini wall being the primary concerns. Although no burial sites are presently known within the road corridor, the alignment will traverse near 3 burial sites, with each of those sites containing multiple burials, and would remove a portion of the Kuakini wall in the area that it is already breached. To avoid impacting the burial sites and Kuakini wall, the study did recommend that Naniloa Drive or another existing route be used to access the proposed project, and that no development activities occur within the Makai Parcel 1. So if construction of the new road corridor is pursued by the applicant, then it is recommended that all SHPE accepted interim and permanent protection measures be fully adhered to, and that the remaining portions of parcel 1 on either side of the road alignment or road corridor be set aside for as a cultural preserve. It was also recommended that the information obtained from the archaeological data recovery efforts be utilized to develop interpretive materials that can tell the history of this area. And the applicant is willing to do that as well, in adherence to this particular recommendation. Another recommendation of the study is to mitigate the impacts on ranching related resources. It was recommended that the Ahupua'a boundary walls along the northern and southern boundaries of the project site be preserved, as well as the Kuakini wall. And the applicant is willing to adhere to that recommendation. So let's see. One note also is the development plan should be revised to reflect an area where descendants can park their vehicles to access the burial sites. The applicant is willing to look into that opportunity as well. Let's see. I think I covered everything. Let me look through my notes. Yeah, I think I've pretty much covered everything. I know that was quite a lot that I said, but hopefully it kind of sets up the proper framework for this discussion going forward.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Arai. At this time, would Ken or Matt like to add to the presentation at all?
Good morning. Thanks for hearing us. My name is Matt Mancy. Thanks, Darren. I don't have anything to add, but just say that we're honored to be back here and being heard, and I'm here to answer any more questions.
Thank you very much. And how about you, Ken?
Nothing to add at this time. Yeah, we're just here to answer any questions, and thank you for having us today.
Okay, thank you both very much. Jean, is it acceptable to open it up to questions from the commission to the applicant?
Yes, absolutely. And that would be the good time to do that.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And I'll just start. I had two questions I noted down, Mr. Arai, if I could ask you, and then maybe you could help clarify so I understand a little better. You mentioned the cultural impact assessment fulfills the condition. I think that was, is that referring to the Cultural Resources Commission recommendation?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. And then you mentioned the road and access and related to Kuakini Highway and some archaeological sites. And I'm not sure I was following. Is there an option on the table that they can that the developer can either access from an existing road or go Mackay? Is that option?
That is correct. When the change of zone was approved, it gave the applicant two options. One is to access via existing roadway systems to the north. That includes Naniloa as well as Queen Kalama, which then goes down to Ali'i Highway, or to construct a completely new access directly through the Mackay Parcel 1 and directly connect to Ali'i Drive. The preference is to go through the Mackay Parcel 1 to directly connect to Ali'i Drive.
The developer's preference?
Yes, and the reason for that is the applicant first and foremost believes that having multiple access points will distribute the traffic load rather than channeling it through an existing subdivision to the north. That is not only one of distributing a traffic load, but also one of providing alternative means of getting Mauka should there be a need to say evacuate the coastal areas. The second consideration was that we have an existing community along Naniloa and Queen Kalama, and in order to improve the roadway as required by the change of zone ordinance, it will require installation of curb gutter sidewalk improvements, which means also relocation of utilities, relocation of driveways, reconstruction of drainage systems. The applicant is really trying to manage the cost of the subdivision improvement, because the higher the cost, of course, it'll all translate into the cost of the actual proposed lots as well. So they're trying to keep the cost of the project overall to in a manageable way. And that is why the preference is to continue to directly access to the Mackay lot.
Thank you for covering that. I appreciate it. I'd like to open it up to any other commissioners who would like to ask any questions at this time of the applicant.
Go ahead. So the AIS was done in 2016. So you have an 18-year-old AIS. Working with Shifty on the Maui projects, the AIS runs with the project, not the parcel. So it seems like the project is changing. So is Shifty going to ask for supplemental AIS testing? Because the concentration of sites in this area, the number of burials, the number of platforms, and also concerns about environmental, non-point source pollution, as well as habitat. So I'm just wondering, because on Maui, if your AIS is over 15 years old, you have to redo it. And if the project has changed, you have to redo it. And I'm working currently on what was known as Wailea 670. And they've been trying to develop that since 1990. And now we're on, I think, our fourth AIS, because the project keeps changing, because the testing for an AIS goes with the project area. So I want to know if there's subsurface testing on the 65 lots, because once you sell those lots to people and they have to attach to utilities that may be put in, are they already covered? Are they going to be covered under the AIS? Are the houses going to be built by one developer, or are you making a subdivision with infrastructure and then selling the lots with everybody on their own jeopardy?
The project, sorry.
That was a lot. Sorry, that was a lot.
Oh, yeah, no problem. The project itself is not going to be vacant lot sales. From what I understand, it is going to be a house and lot development. So the developer will be managing the whole project as it proceeds forward, and not kind of leaving individual lot owners to fend for themselves. At the same time, the while the reports were done a number of years ago, the SHPE also did approve all the data recovery and preservation plans as a result of those studies. And if they felt that the previously prepared archaeological reports were either insufficient, stale, whatever, they could have made that demands for that additional study, and they have not.
So the project hasn't changed. The project's exactly the same as it was in 2006. So the testing strategy goes with the project. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah, no, the project has not changed. The project that was analyzed as part of the cultural impact assessment that you just received is the same presentation that was done earlier to the AIS as well as to the Leeward Planning Commission hearings.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Doctor, did that answer your question? Okay, very good, thank you. Are we allowed to make statements, Jean? Is it still question and answer session? Is it that kind of time period?
You're still in your fact-finding phase, so you shouldn't be advocating one way or the other or making sort of statements until you have a motion open on the floor.
Okay. And now that I'm back as chair, I'm not supposed to. Oh yeah, sorry, Ken, go ahead. I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to add a couple of things, mainly because I'm not sure who was. Some of you guys weren't familiar with this project. It does go back quite a ways. As far as the SHPE and the AIS goes, we actually fully mitigated the burials following SHPE plan, the burial treatment plan, and the parcel was grubbed back in 2017, I think, 2016, 2018, I forget exactly when. And this project's a little bit unusual because the Cultural Commission didn't really come in contact with the project till after we went back after the zoning expired, and we went back for the zoning extension. And then the Planning Commission made the request that we go through the Cultural Commission. So it's kind of reverse. Usually you go to the Cultural Commission first, get everything mitigated, and then move forward. So it's a little unusual, but the applicant was happy to do that. And so it's a little bit, there has been quite a bit of, we fully permitted with grubbing permits, fully SHPE permitted, everything's been permitted, but there has been a lot of site work that's already been done on the parcel 121. This is the upper parcel, not the lower parcel. The lower parcel hasn't been any construction or grubbing at all, just the easement for the roadway, and then of course the archaeological studies and so forth. So yeah, but as far as the AIS and the SHPE goes, that was fully approved, and there's actually been some earthwork done on the property in the past. I just wanted to update you with that.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate that. Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I was just asking, I know there was things brought up, and again, I'm catching up to speed. Is there sewer attachments? Are you putting in a wastewater or leach field here, or are you attaching to county sewer?
So the construction plans were fully approved by DPW back in 18, and that called for a sewer connection. And so we're going to extend sewer along Hawaiʻi Drive, because right now that's sewer ends is down on Hawaiʻi Drive, and we had it's like 800-foot connection or so forth. So it was going to be sewer.
Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions at this time, I'll open it up to commissioners. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Kinney.
Oh, yeah, I had a couple of questions. Just with regards to the community surveys. There was a statement in there about the community surveys not generally endorsing the project, and I was wondering if you could be more specific about that. Like, was it like 10% or for it and 90% were against, or was it all against in terms of your community surveys?
The applicant did not conduct a community survey. Some of the consultation basically occurred through the development of both the 2006 and the 2024 cultural impact assessments. And when they tried to reach out to a number of individuals for consultation, especially those individuals with genealogical ties to this area. The 2006 survey did interview a number of individuals. I forget the actual number. I think it was somewhere about 6 or 7 individuals. And the most current 2024 CIA interviewed just one person with genealogical ties to this area, and that's Commissioner Nicole Louie, who unfortunately could not be with us today. The other 2 individuals are actually somewhat recent residents of the islands. I'm not sure exactly where they come from, but they're like neighbors to this project, if I remember correctly. So again, the outreach was somewhat limited. They did try to contact a number of individuals, but very few, especially on the more recent CIA, very few responded or were willing to be interviewed.
See, yeah, you know, I guess what I was looking at and looking through the many documents that were shared for us was there anybody for this project at all that came out and was, yeah, we would love to have this project in our community. And I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything. I did not see that. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to share whether or not there was anybody that came out and said that we'd love to have this project in this area.
I'm not aware that anyone actually came out and said they love to have this project in this area. I know if any, some did question on whether or not the project was truly affordable or could be affordable. So that kind of seems to telegraph that they're somewhat receptive to residential development in this area, but they just felt it wasn't targeting, I guess, locals, you know, so that's the best.
I guess I have a statement later on that, but my second question is, you know, I really appreciate you guys going through this process and getting ASM to do this, and mahalo for that. And I guess my question is, you know, you've done these surveys, you talked to these folks, you adapted your mitigations, and what wasn't clear to me was, did you come back around to the people that you talked with and share these mitigation strategies with them and what their response was to those?
Right, as Mr. Van Bergen mentioned, the process is slightly backwards. I mean, we went through the process, went to Planning Commission, and then it got referred back down to the Cultural Resource Commission. The reason we're here today is largely to determine whether or not the 2024 CIA update address all of the concerns expressed in 2022 by the Cultural Resource Commission. And if the commission finds that, yes, the updated CIA is adequate and appropriate, then the applicant will then reassess the project and how it's then going to address all of the recommendations in the CIA, because they didn't want to take the cavalier attitude that the commission may not have more to offer or more to add. Because again, the 2024 updated CIA was just done in response to the request of the CRC, and we just want to make sure before we take the next step forward that this current updated CIA is adequate in the CRC's eyes.
Yeah. And then I guess the last thing, as I was reading through some of the documents, just to clarify that, so the affordable housing, I guess, mitigation for this project is through housing credits. Is that correct? That there won't actually be affordable housing at this particular site, but those credits will be offloaded to another developer. Did I understand that correctly when I was reading it?
That decision has not been made yet because the applicant understands it still has to go before the Hawaii County Council for an amendment to the change of zone ordinance. And we're also well aware that the county is undergoing efforts to amend Chapter 11, which is the county's affordable housing code. So all of that may change. I've heard things about maybe credits being wiped out, like no longer being offered, and other type of methods of satisfaction being implemented. So it's really a kind of a wait and see at this point. All we know is that the current requirements under Chapter 11 is that applicant must earn affordable housing credits equal to 20% of the number of lots being proposed. And that's all the applicant knows at this time. How they plan to satisfy it, remains to be seen,
Yeah. And I guess my last kind of comment was, a number of people have brought up a threatened species in the area and how this might impact them or fragment their habitat and so forth. And our newest commissioner, Dr. Sorry, I missed your last name.
Six, like the number six. It's like six.
Number 6.
Sounds science fiction, yeah.
I think she mentioned that something important about the EAS being updated because these populations changed. It's not the same in terms of these species and their current status and their habitation of these areas. So it seems to me that perhaps you guys will do some kind of updated environmental statement for the area.
So sorry, real quick, I just want to clarify that I believe Dr. Six was referencing the AIS.
Oh, AIS. Oh, okay. Sorry.
The archaeological.
But it also would
I
have to
think
do with the EIS,
Yeah.
EIA. I think they just said it was an EA, not a full environmental impact assessment. Because things have happened. I'm on the Nako Manu board for Maui, which is Maui Forest Birds, and I know we just released the alala on Maui for the first time. It's been extinct in the wild. So we've lost so many of our bird species. We've lost so much habitat. It is a real concern because in culture, Hawaiian culture, you can't separate nature from culture, right? Natural things like sugarcane or ko are the kino lau of Kane, right? So you can't break them apart. So for me, sometimes the environmental assessment is also a cultural assessment. So I just think that's something to think about, that things change. And in 2006, it was a different world than it is going to be here in 2025. And we need to take a look at the impact we're having on the environment, both cultural and natural, and in the way marry those two and think of it that way holistically.
Sorry to interrupt, but can we limit our commentary to just questions and answers, fact finding at this point, and then all the other good stuff can happen during your discussion once you have a motion on the floor.
Yeah. I'll just close by just thanking the applicant for their efforts and, it's appreciated. I think the level of scrutiny that's coming with this is because it is so close to the historic area and, open space is becoming smaller and smaller. So, I think, there's a lot of scrutiny that goes into it and whether this is going to be something that's good for this community, good for this area, and protect our cultural resources. But thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kinney. I really appreciate those comments as well as the comments offered by all of the commissioners. I want to clarify that, and Matt and Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, no environmental assessment was prepared in support of the amendment request. When I made reference to the environmental assessment, it was pertaining to the proposed improvements to La'aloa Park that's located to the north in order to for the applicant to satisfy its recreational obligations due to the creation of this residential community. So that's where the EA occurred. No EA was prepared for this property. However, an environmental report did accompany the amendment requests that were provided to the Planning Commission for both the rezoning amendment as well as the SMA amendment. And that record should, I believe I believe you have access to that record, if I remember correctly. I know it was shared previously.
Thank you. I'll extend the question if any other commissioners have any questions that they'd like to ask for fact finding to the applicant.
Yes, please. I got a couple. In looking at the interviews that were done back when, a couple of them are family members of mine, and so just look. And you actually mentioned a couple, like Uncle Clarence Maderas. He was the one who had talked about naming the roadways. After important, making sure that it was. Anyway, you made reference to some of the things that were mentioned in some of those oral history interviews of family members. And I guess one of the things though is I wonder, was a cultural advisory created? Because that was mentioned. And out of all of the other things that were done and whatnot, was something like this created, a cultural advisory that did include lineal descendants? Because there are a couple of people that are still with us today that are lineal descendants of the place. One is Uncle Hiram Rivera. He was one of the original interviews. So I guess that's one of my questions was a cultural advisory created and in existence?
No, an advisory group has not been established. And that is actually part of the next step that the applicant is willing to take. We're well aware that both the 2006 assessment as well as the more current assessment kind of speaks to that, having those type of advisors. And the applicant is willing to take that step forward because some of the recommendations, like providing additional vehicular parking for visitors to access these burial sites, that will require at least some redesign of the project elements. And taking that step, including naming the streets, all of that, the applicant doesn't have the wherewithal to do that, so they will definitely reach out. But both, maybe I should offer you this perspective. Think about the SMA permit and the change of zone as sort of like first steps. It's just a blessing by the county to say, we think you can make this work. We think this is a good project in the area. Okay, these are the entitlements to kind of let you take the next step. But if you look at the recommendations of the planning director for both the rezoning and SMA amendments, there's a host of conditions that the applicant has to comply with. Including, and I'm not only talking about infrastructure related conditions, they're talking about compliance with the data recovery plans, the burial treatment plans, making sure all of the things you promise gets properly implemented. So there's a lot of steps that will need to occur should the SMA and rezoning be approved. And that can include creating the advisory group that was recommended by both CIAs, and then having them help the landowner toward designing, or at least considering what type of elements can be incorporated into the design of the project. What you see before you is really just a concept. There's a lot of work that may need to occur and will need to occur before it can be nailed to the ground.
Yeah, mahalo. Thank you. I might not be familiar with all of the steps and every single detail, so I'm appreciative. It's a learning all the way around. At the same time, I think with knowing that there are successive steps, right, kind of one before the other and whatnot, for me, engaging the Kanaka of place at this point is a little bit late to the game for me. Kanaka should be kind of the first point of contact and throughout. So that's my own, thoughts. But okay, so a cultural advisory has not yet been created, and it's gonna probably be along the lines of when whomever deems it appropriate will happen. I guess another thing for me is looking through the study, the geology, right? There's soil, there's historical documentation, I just wonder about water, very specifically looking at water, the uptake of water, storm water, the impacts, Auntie Hannah, again, right? You folks know Auntie Hannah Springer. She did a lot of those oral history interviews when you look at them in the documents provided. And I'm actually going to definitely use one of her visuals that she created for us, that there's one nice mason jar filled with water, which is like our aquifers. And we just keep putting straws in, and the aquifer doesn't get bigger or doesn't grow, and it's only recharged by rain, but we keep putting more straws into this lovely mason jar, right? I think you guys get the idea. So my thought is really about looking at the intake and the impacts on water for yet one more subdivision, one more, and we just continue. So I definitely will, to your question of, is this adequate? Is there more that the applicant can do? I'm not sure that for me that there would ever be a point of having things that's adequate. So again, I think that was all of my questions. I'm going to look at my notes. Time extension request. Yeah, I think I'll just look through this, but we can move on. I think that was my initial questions and thoughts. Mahalo.
Thank you, Commissioner Keakeaulani. Mr. Arai, would you like to, do you have anything to add at this time?
I appreciate the comments Keakeaulani, as it pertains to water. The fact that this is a built project, meaning it's not just vacant lot sales, they're looking at actually developing the project in itself. They can also then take a more proactive type of action to try to mitigate the amount of potable water use through things like use of xeriscape, maybe agreeing to certain conditions. I've seen it before in SMA permits, for example. The applicant will incorporate best management practice to reduce the amount of water usage that occurs. And actually, water supply has been encouraging landowners to do as much when they notice that there's an overuse of water. So those are the type of, we appreciate those comments. It's something the applicant can take back to the table and see how they can play a role in trying to be more responsible about this. Well, on a broader scale, the applicant has to rely on the county's potable water system in order to support its project. And the only way to do that is really to work with the Department of Water Supply. And again, in the end, it relies on the Department of Water Supply to determine how much water is available to our project and how much you can use and where does that water come from. So the applicant can mitigate to a certain extent, but on a broader scale, like how many straws you put into the mason jar, that you have to defer to the Department of Water Supply. In the end, the applicant would just be an end user, but to what little effect it can do, like water saving fixtures, xeriscape landscaping, those type of things they can definitely implement.
Can I add to that?
Please.
Just wanted, there's been a significant amount of work in the past done with Department of Water Supply. And a matter of fact, this project is going to have what's called a master meter with some lead technology, and so the water uses has already been reduced. It won't be 62 water commitments supplying to the 62 homes eventually. It was like, I think it's 47, if I'm not mistaken. But there's already been a lot of work done and approvals by Water Supply on this project. And just to Darren's point earlier, Darren, you mentioned the EA done for the park. There was an environmental report done for parcel 121 back in October of 2007. So we do have a ER on this project.
Thank you. Please, Commissioner Dr. Six.
I know you mentioned having some of these cultural sites that were identified put into preservation, and that you went through that. Is there any way, who's going to manage that? Is it going to be the 65 property owners? Are they going to contribute to the management of it? Because I've seen repeatedly parcels put into preservation and they just get overgrown with weeds and they become fire hazards and attract a nuisance. So I've seen in the past a certain percentage of resale of houses goes towards that preserve, or you find like the cultural commission you're talking about creating, you know, who is going to manage that so that these sites are protected? And just wondering if that has been something anyone's thought about, or if that's already built into the project.
All right, Matt can probably speak to this, but I know the owners or the clients would be open to, you know, lineal descendants would be ideal, but you know, any local practitioners or public that want to participate. As far as responsibility goes, it most likely be the association, and that would keep, as far as weeds and management and keeping it clean and so forth. You know, once the burial treatment plan is followed and it's put in place, then yeah, it'd have to be managed by the association. But like I said, I'm sure Matt can, you know, agree that any participation by you know, legal descendants or whoever would be very much, you know, encouraged.
Yeah, that would be encouraged and, you know, probably managed, you know, by the HOA that we have in place.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of times they put things in preservation and then there's no one actually, or they try to give it to OHA or to give it to a group and there's no support and funding. And it's great to have people be involved in legal descendants, especially with burials, but you also, there's a time, money, and constraints. So just try to think of how to support that and not just leave it, because it's great to put it in preservation, but if you don't maintain and manage it, it can become an attractive nuisance. I hate to use that term with the burial sites, but we need to make sure that they're properly malama sites and that there's funding and support for that.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of a condition imposed on us to make sure that responsibility stays on the HOA.
Thank you.
Thank you. One clarification I had, Mr. Arai, was I wrote down that the ASM affiliates report was not received by the CRC yet. Did I write that down correctly?
No, we did transmit it when we made the request to be placed on your agenda.
Oh, okay. So we have the ASM report. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood.
I don't know.
Would any other commissioners like to ask any other questions at this time to the applicant?
I had one question. Just when I was looking through it, and maybe I missed it in your report, but it's about wildfire and what kind of you know, I couldn't tell from the maps like how you are going to be mitigating that or what kind of buffers might be put in place, and if you have thought about this or considered it, or you know, and how that might impact archaeological or cultural resources that are near the or in proximity to the footprint of this area, you know. And it's also for the area that you're thinking of making into sort of an archaeological park and trail. How are you going to deal with potential fire impacts in those areas?
As far as, I mean, honestly, that's where I see the value of establishing a working group, because they will hopefully help guide us on how to best manage both the vegetation in the area or excessive vegetation in the area, but without doing so in a manner that may have some sort of deleterious effect on these resources. So definitely we can reach out, and like I said, that's why I do see the value of having that working group in place.
I have one more question, and I'm sorry I'm repeating myself from our prior meeting. You mentioned this road going Mackay from the project site to the highway, and in doing so, traveling through or disrupting the Kuakini wall. Is that correct? It's not an overpass?
No,
It's not the highway, it's a Lee Drive.
Ali'i Drive, sorry. Okay, but it's not an overpass over the Kuakini Wall, preserving it in place. It's actually like an existing breach, or there's already, and then the road goes through that natural area. So my question pertains to, it's possibly that this is a burial treatment plan question for protection of existing features in place. Is there a buffer zone from the road? Well, one is, how wide is the road? What's the buffer zone off the edge of road to the wall? And this all comes back to years and years ago, before I was born. I'd heard about, well, I heard about it after I was born, but the story goes back to when Kauai Road wasn't the way it is now, and the road actually traveled past Pu'ukohola Heiau. And in doing so, it was studied, I believe, by the US Corps of Engineers, that the vibrations of road traffic created disturbances to that feature. And so ultimately the road was realigned. And I only just bring it up because the Kuakini Wall is an important feature. And so I wanted to know if there's, I mean, if semi trucks are driving up and down the road for construction, what's that going to do versus, like, you know, anyway, I leave it open at that point.
Yeah, there is an existing breach through the Kuakini Wall that occurred. I don't recall the exact year, but it was before acquisition of the property by the current applicants. That breach will have to be widened. Normally, the road leading up to the property, I believe, was a 50-foot wide width to the road. So at the very least, it would have to accommodate that. Normally, there's a 10-foot buffer from archaeological sites. And then I think there's an additional temporary buffer that's put into place during, say, construction type of activities. And once things are done, the temporary buffer goes away, and then the permanent 10-foot buffer is established. So the applicant will have to adhere to all of those type of requirements imposed by State Historic Preservation Division when they do their necessary construction drawings. And yeah, it all has to meet with SHPE approval before they can actually start scraping the land. But of course, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's going back a ways, but when the SMA was given for the road, that was all addressed. There was maps showing the burial buffer areas and where the road's going to go, and that's why the SMA permit was actually issued. And then the road construction was approved by the county DPW. The only reason this thing isn't built is there were some delays at the very end of the zoning period that delayed it, or it would have been built already several years ago, actually. So all that mitigation for buffers and you know, properly treating the burial areas and the preservation areas was addressed. And there's some maps available we could probably send you so you can see it.
You know, I have a additional question if you're done, Aaron.
Yes.
Maybe you could speak to this, Ken. You know, I read that there was some grubbing and some bulldozing that happened, and I wanted to, it wasn't clear to me if there was, you know, the required permits to do so at that time.
Yeah, so back and forgive me, it was either 2017 or 18. We got a grubbing permit, and before that any work was done, of course, SHPE was approved and so forth. We had a archaeological monitor. I believe it was Alan Hahn's team on site during the grubbing period, and we actually had to hire a landscape company to go in and clear either 20 or 30-foot buffer around the burials with construction fencing. It's a 10-foot buffer for the permanent, you know, rock wall, but this is even bigger construction buffer. So we went in and cleared around the burial areas, preservation areas. The construction fencing was put up, and then the archaeologist monitor was assigned, and then it was cleared initially back in 2017 or 18 one time, and then it's overgrown again. So now that was the only time there was any site work done on the property.
We also did pull a grading permit as well that we didn't actually use.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we had full construction permits. We had full construction, not just grading, but roads, sewers, water. It was a permitted project.
Yeah.
But as far as to answer your question, it was just the initial grubbing was done 8 years ago or 7 years ago. And then that's all that's been done.
I appreciate that. I think there was someone who gave testimony and I had some questions about that and thought that maybe there wasn't permits and there was illegal grubbing going on. So I just wanted to clarify that.
It was fully permitted and fully monitored. Yeah.
Did any things come out during the monitoring? Any new sites or EV come out during the grubbing?
No, there was no additional findings during the grubbing.
Thank you.
I have a clarifying question then, please. Darren, did I hear you say though that the project was not finished because when run out of money and that this extension or the extension is to allow a period to secure funding or funders to fund this? So is that not the reason that this project is not complete because when run out of money?
Not only running out of money, obviously, but obviously that's a big issue, but it was more a matter of time because the ordinance and the permit basically said you had so much time to complete the project. And when you looked at the calendar, basically said 2019, right? So they were able to get almost every single approval in order to start construction of the subdivision. Then when they lost funding, it didn't give them enough time to try to secure new funding before the 2019 deadline just passed them by. So planning, because they have to administer the requirements of both the rezoning ordinance and SMA permit based on the actual conditions within them, they cannot basically exceed those limitations, which is why they had to then tell us, well, sorry, you have to go back to the process to amend your permits.
Also, just to further clarify, when we're talking about funding, we're talking about construction lending, not necessarily capital.
Mahalo.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you all very much, commissioners and applicants. At this time, one last go around the room. Any questions? And I don't see any hands. So if we're not going to have any questions, I believe at this time, I can't, as chair, submit a motion. I'd like to open it up on the floor for any motions that might be considered, at which point, following the motion, we can have discussion. Okay. No pressure or anything. I'm just gonna keep.
No, can we just make a motion that we go into discussion, or does it have to be a specific motion?
It does need to be a motion for action.
I move to go into discussion phase of this meeting.
I'm afraid discussion isn't an action. It does need to be a motion for action on the application itself, or on the item itself.
Well, I guess something to discuss is we could make a motion based on what Tikule brought up on the advocating for a cultural advisory group to be created. And that could open up discussion. So I guess I don't know. Would that be a good place to start? Okay. Maybe I should reword that again, Carmine. Can we make a motion to advise the applicant to create a cultural advisory group?
Say that one more time.
I second the motion.
So the motion on the floor is to advise the applicant to create a cultural advisory group. And it's been put in forth by Commissioner Kinney and seconded by Commissioner Six. It's open for discussion, so commissioners, please jump in. My one request, and I don't know if this is an amendment or not, but it's more of a question, I think, to the other commissioners. Is a cultural advisory group exclusive for lineal descendants? I'm not sure I understand that, or is it a mixed bag, or?
My manao is it is an exclusive. Right, when you look at burial, for burials, you can be a recognized lineal descendant or a cultural. So maybe staying along those lines, but yeah, I not a thought of exclusiveness, but again, interested and what was my word? Essential interest. People that would have an essential interest in that was the thought. That's just my manao.
Thank you. I have no amendment proposed, and I just wanted to, that was my question to the motion.
Can we start the discussion?
Yes, yes.
So as part of that cultural advisory board, I think it's important to look at impacts to the Kuakini wall. If you are going to come from Ali'i Drive, these, we have the Apuni wall by Kamehameha III in Wailea, so we've been dealing with similar things, but if you're going to have to take a part of that important cultural feature down, I also think it's concerned with the vibration of heavy equipment giving its dry stack. And also maybe how do you mitigate, not doing further damage. And also because of the Lahaina wildfire, I think the fire concerns are something should be discussed, make sure people have exit routes. I know they're talking about one entrance, and I think it's important to have multiple exits points, just given the fact that we are in this, a new wildfire kind of existence. So that can all be addressed. And I think using native plants and things like that we are looking at as rebuilding Lahaina to keep, some of them are xerophytes in the drier areas. So just wanted to put in that making sure that buffers and zones, the burial sites are protected and Malamud, and as well as the impacts to the Kuakini wall. I think those are very important besides the other things that have been mentioned in this meeting. Thank you.
This is Kevin with staff. I just want to see if I can help here. The LPC deferred this action until the CRC had a chance to review this project for impacts on the overall cultural landscape and whether those impacts have been adequately minimized or mitigated. There was also concern with that about the depth and degree of Kama'aina and lineal descendants being consulted in the design and development of this project. And you now have a CIA in front of you that has, and you've heard from the applicant about their willingness to implement specific actions from that CIA. One thing that I believe this board probably needs to make a finding on is if this CIA is generally adequate enough as sort of originally intended for this project. And then there are a number of recommendations from that CIA. One of them is the access, whether or not, I think I heard the applicant say that they're completely willing to avoid the Ali'i Drive access through the Makai parcel, and that was actually feasible if they use Nani Loa. So there's an access topic that y'all could make a motion on. Then there's also sort of an easy way to make a recommendation regarding those ahupua'a walls, whether they stay or not, recommending the applicant to preserve them or not. Same thing goes with the Kuakini wall. I'm just trying to piecemeal this into very specific motions for this board to make. Obviously, I'm sensitive because I have to write the letter for y'all, right? And then there's the burial access and parking. I think that's another issue. And then this, I guess I might make a recommendation that regarding the motion on the table now about the advisory board, that you sort of maybe want to mention that they what are they doing? Are they going to make recommendations on all those things, or maybe just about the interpretive recovery and, or I'm sorry, there was another recommendation in the CIA about the data recovery and using those materials for curating them and keeping them on site, having them as interpretive materials and things like that. So I understand the cultural advisory board. I just want to, as we make that motion, discuss it. We fit in what you, I guess, recommend them focus on that you are not comfortable making specific recommendations on today, separate from that, if that makes any sense.
I got a question, Kevin. I got a question. Can we make two motions? One is that we're going to make
as many as you want, as far as I understand, and sort of the more and simpler they are may be best.
So,
but I leave that to Gene to.
So two big buckets is, one is, what if we created the CAB or made a motion to create it? And the second is, what are all those things the CAB does or can do? And maybe we don't want to be super limiting, but certainly, like you said, there could be a lot of motions. I wrote up 4.
So just procedurally, your motions should be sequential, right? You have one on the table, you deal with that, you vote on it, and then you move on to the next one.
Commissioner Kinney?
Well, yeah, I mean, I know, I think we're still in this discussion part of this. And, you know, I appreciate those comments and direction. And I think part of the reason why, you know, I took note of Auntie Kule's suggestion and is because I think it is kind of inadequate in terms of the assessment that was provided to us and the amount of input that was able to be gathered from lineal descendants. Although I want to point out that you know, there was an effort that was made. I mean, they put it in the paper, they mailed letters, they called people, you know, and some of those people did not respond. And we know we know this is a hard thing because people are working, and, you know, they're not working for a planning company or on call every second, you know. People got lives and it's hard. And so I think the suggestion for this cultural advisory board is really to kind of put more effort into gathering these individuals so you can have you know, some direction from them, from that community of folks in terms of the mitigations that are being proposed and sort of how this development can better understand the practices and connections that people have to this place. And so I you know, that's the reason I brought up this motion. Or actually Auntie Kule brought it up, but that's why I jumped in on it. Because that's how I feel. There are folks on there that actually that are lineal descendants that have testified. We have some information from them. It's not like it doesn't exist. It's not in this report, but I know Malia Kipapa, she testified. She had a very clear testimony about what she felt about the place, but it's not captured in these assessments, and it's not. I don't think it's been captured in the mitigations either. Mahilani Pai, you know, I mean, these folks are, you know, like, yeah, they're hard to get in touch with sometimes, maybe, but they're out there, you know, and I think there are other ways to get in touch with people, you know, like, for example, they just had the Lono Ikamakahiki celebration right down there. All these folks are there. Everybody, everybody that you're talking about, it was right in Kona. Those are opportunities to engage. Those are opportunities to talk to folks and to build a cultural advisory board that's representative of that place. And I just don't feel like this assessment really was able to do that. Despite your best efforts, You may have to be more creative in how you engage the individuals. Yeah, that's all. That's what I have to say about this particular motion and why I think it's important.
Thank you for clarifying that motion. That I think helps us understand our it's open for commissioners to discuss. Okay, and we could certainly vote on this motion. I think that's the next theoretical step, if there's no more discussion. So I'd like to call for a vote. And staff, if it's okay, can we do a roll call vote on this?
Yeah, let's clarify, read back the motion. And please forgive me if I get any of this wrong. Actually, why don't you take the first shot, Kim? You got it.
Yeah, so Commissioner Kinney made a motion to create a cultural advisory group consisting of both lineal or cultural descendants or folks with essential interest.
Okay. And so is the CRC's motion that the applicant put together this advisory group? Right? Okay, so there's clarity that make a motion to recommend the applicant convene, I don't know if you want to put convene a cultural advisory group in order to better engage lineal descendants, Kama'aina, to revise the CIA. I don't want to put anybody's
advice, maybe.
I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth on that motion. I just want it to be specific.
Does it have to be to the CIA, or can it just be a cultural advisory group, or is it particular?
No, I was literally just throwing that out as to what is their end product, or what would you like to see as a result of a positive result from that board convening and the applicant coming back to us.
So I asked Commissioner Kinney if he has any monologue on that, and of course the other commissioners as well.
I think what you're trying to get at here is like, I mean, I'll just say it, like, I don't think anybody in this community wants this project to happen. But sometimes progress is inevitable, whether we want it or not. And we try to compromise and try to find, mitigations that can balance the impact of these areas. This is obvious, right? And you can't do that unless you are actively engaging with those groups. And it wasn't clear to me in the previous interviews or the current surveys that you really got a representative group. Even the person that was like from that place or tied to that place didn't feel comfortable making direct recommendations. So I think to me, this cultural advisory group can perhaps help advise and improve the mitigations to better compromise potentially. If there is a compromise, sometimes there is not a compromise, and this may be a case where there isn't a compromise. That's what all these folks that have taken their time to testify have been telling us, bringing up all of these issues. And maybe that's something that the applicant also needs to hear, maybe this is the wrong place, the wrong time. And there may be real reasons for that. But I think more could be done to kind of explore whether a compromise is possible, and I guess that's sort of, trying to balance, sort of our role here in protecting cultural resources, I think more could have been done in that area. And this advisory board could help inform that. Yeah, sorry.
So from a motion standpoint, Kevin, I think we're back to the more general motion advising the applicant to create a cultural advisory group consisting of lineal descendants, cultural practitioners, essential interests.
Yeah, and I think advising and improving the mitigation opportunities is enough clarity there that Commissioner Kinney added. I think that's helpful.
Okay, and basically that covers, well, now I'm speaking for everyone, please jump in, commissioners, but does that cover generally enough for the cultural advisory group or board to determine that maybe Kuakini Wall is a priority? You know, and you know, do we give them the freedom to pick and choose what becomes important, or are we assigning to them what is the important thing? I think that's my question. Right now, it's kind of a general statement, and they could kind of pick and choose, is the way I understand it.
I think we should make those motions on the walls as well, to have it, you know, that cultural advisory is really about giving people of place a voice. That's kind of my thought of bringing that up initially, is that the people of place, so that the cultural advisory that's going to be seated are people of that area, whether lineal cultural descendants, it's people of area, that they have a voice, much again, like was said, the people that came to testify today. I think one thing right, because many things have been passed, permits, this and that. So our advisory, I think laying down motions from us is really important. An added element in some sort of assurance. If there are all of these things that have already been passed, then right, that's where we're at this point. So the assurance of the malama of these important cultural sites, which are indeed natural, cultural, one in the same, is important. So I see different motions of Malamada Wall, preservation in place, Ahupua Awas, Kuakini Wall as one motion. Definitely the suggestion and strong recommendation of the creation of an advisory, another motion. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. But yeah, I think the more to me, the more motions we can make and in these strong recommendations, laying them out as motions that's kind of our superpower, maybe, as I can see it, right? Because we're advisory, we're not the decision makers. So coming up to this in this point to say Shipti went past this, county went past that, this is where we come in, is making these motions. But Oya Ihola, mahalo.
Mahalo. Any other commissioners want to weigh in? I'm on the same page. I'm tracking with this. Commissioner Hamia, any comments to add at this point?
You're muted.
Uncle Des, you're muted.
Upon everything shared by the commissioners, Kule and Kelo, I think we're at a point where you know, it's frustrating to hear that a cultural advisory commission or board has not been established. Knowing well from the documents that culture was the main concern, yet the arm is short and not long enough. And you know, this is the same narrative that's been going over 50 years. It's the same roadblock, it's the same narratives. We have everybody coming in with all of the opinions, their PhDs, everything, but we are facing the same predicament that our kupuna faced. And so I think we do something about the system. We'll be just dragging our canoe on the beach over the rocks. It's maybe not, it's disappointing, it's sad for our kupuna that laid the foundation. And after our Malamohonua voyage, it's global. And it's not only Hawaiian and Hawaiian Islands, it's global. And it hurts me to hear this stuff when it really concerns our children, which is really important to me. I have students listening in, and they are our kupuna, our ancestors in training. And to hear this, especially one from Maila, how come they talk about culture, but they don't include culture in the planning? And if this has been going on since a long time, this battle for that area, for that Aina, that's back in 64, that when development was happening in Kona. No, it's just, let's go. It's not my decision, like Kule, we're not the decision makers. We can only recommend through a cultural lens what we think or believe that what is appropriate. For not only for the locals, not only for the Hawaiians, for everybody. It's for everybody, and it's really strongly advocate for our children. That's all I have.
Mahalo. I think unless there's any other discussion, comments or questions, I would like to call for a roll call vote from staff on the motion on the floor.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, who made the motion?
Hello.
Yeah,
Kenny made the motion.
Yeah.
And
Commissioner Kenny,
Yes.
Commissioner Six,
Aye.
Chair Spielman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kekealani,
Aye.
Commissioner Helmea. Uncle Des?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes
Unanimously.
to, yeah, for the advisory board.
Okay.
Uncle, real quick, sorry, Uncle Des, how much longer do we have you? Do you have to go anywhere?
Well, I'm 73, so I don't know how much time I got.
That's a great answer. I know none of us do, right? Within the,
I already postponed my other meeting.
okay, thank you. Sorry. All right, thank you. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then I think I'd like it to open it back up to commissioners for any other motion that we would like to make at this time.
Okay, I'm gonna take a shot at this. Help me out. But I do want to make a motion that all of the papohaku, the walls within, on the border, on the boundary, within all of the papohaku be preserved in place. Yeah, well, you know.
Second that motion.
Thank you. And we're open for discussion now. My question, sorry, Auntie Ku'ule, forgive my my silly question, but you say papohaku, is that including the Kuekini wall? That includes the Aopua'a walls we were talking about earlier. And
yeah,
does it also include special features that are not necessarily walls?
You know, it could be a pa is a wall, a fence, an enclosure that's made out of rock. So certainly it would be able to be inclusive of all of those, the sites that were seen and recorded and documented. So yeah, there would be a pretty much a call, a blanket, maybe on all of the papohaku, right? Because they have a foot, just like we have footprints of things, there's handprints of the people who did the masonry work, the dry stack, and it's very evident and clear where you can tell that the handprint, if you will, from different districts or ahupua'a. And so, yeah, I would say blanket, if you will, I don't know the right word, or a very general broad sweep on preservation in place of papohaku enclosures, walls that are made and created out of rock.
Thank you. Thank you. So currently we have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded and we're in discussion. Any questions or comments we'd like to add to this discussion point? Yes, please, Dr. Six. Sorry, it's like I started to see. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to always just make a comment. Instead of always thinking mitigate, we should celebrate archaeological treasures. These are cultural treasures. These are something that adds a value. If that's the way the West looks at things, these have a value, right? So they're not something to just be mitigated. They should be celebrated. So that's just my comment.
I love that lens. Thank you for sharing that. Okay.
If I might add, sorry, Aaron, just one more thought here is this, the wording of no significant impact. I struggle with that all the time. To the eye of the beholder, what is significant? And the lay of the land, houses replacing trees, thereby, right, removing habitat for the manu, for all of the things that rely on the trees. So I cannot get behind the thought of no significant impact. So maybe that's just a general, again, a broad sweep across everything that I disagree with the statements of no significant impact. And so if that's maybe tacked on in some way, shape, or form, or that's just going down as my comment, then oya no. But mahalo ho.
I got something to add to that. I have three of my students sitting over here. One of the questions, they say, how come, Uncle, they want to take away stuff that might make it hard for them to gather food. The other one is, how come they don't interview young people who will be there after we leave? How come no interviews are being done, especially in the schools and stuff like that? Okay, Myla? All right. That's it.
So we have that motion regarding the stone structures.
I call for the vote.
Been second. Okay.
So I just, maybe to help clarify, I just, thank you, Commissioner Ku'ule and Commissioner Desmond. Does it make sense to vote on the motion for the papohaku? And then we follow up with another motion about what Commissioner Ku'ule just said? Is that, and then also what Commissioner Desmond,
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's fine. I mean, unless you want to blend into the motion, the fact that you're making the motion because you are finding a significant impact if they're not preserved. And you can do that with every motion. Right. It's just, it seems like a reasoning and a justification for making that motion recommendation.
Okay.
Or it can be separate. Yeah. I mean,
Commissioner Ku'ule, what is your mana'o on, was the no significant impact tied directly to the papohaku, or is it a general broader condition?
Yep. General and broad.
Okay. So I guess if I'm looking at it from like a procedural lens, maybe we vote on the motion for the papohaku as a specific thing, and then we come back and do a general motion on the no significant impact. Is that all right? Okay. I'd like to ask for staff's help doing a roll call vote motion on the floor.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Kailani?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Six?
Aye.
Chair Spielman?
Aye.
Commissioner Kinney?
Aye.
Commissioner Haumea?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Mahalo. Commissioner Ku'ule, would you like to bring up the next motion?
Sure. Okay. the motion is for us as a CRC to find that, help me out, you guys,
Find is good.
to find that the statement of no significant impact is not acceptable. I'm not sure how to finish this. Is not acceptable to the CRC? Because I believe we all feel that there is significant impact. So yeah, somebody
Well,
help me out, please.
Gene, can they make a general statement that they just find that there is a significant impact? Or
With a broader sense?
I think if they wanted to make a general finding like that, it would be helpful to identify, what and how and why. I think one thing to keep in mind is this is your opportunity to give direction and make requests essentially of the landowner about how to deal with something. And so simply saying something big and broad doesn't help them to figure out where to go. So to the extent that you can be specific about something and give them direction, or, a concrete recommendation, that would be helpful.
Okay.
I think we know where Ku'ule's ano is centered and what direction she wants to go. Just gotta help with the language to make it legally appropriate, because we have a chance to makavalu that anyway. So we just want to make sure that it's legally acceptable. How's that, Ku'ule?
Aye. Yeah, definitely. Surely, Uncle, within the legal ramifications of things, but specificity, if they're asking for specifics, I mean, one big mail for me is VAI, looking at VAI and kind of the formulas maybe that are utilized by, which is kind of why also like one links to the other. I'm thinking of the cultural advisory, that there is the hope that they will really key into these things and these questions can be surfaced there. But for now, it's on our table, so we go surface the questions as we can. So maybe one of the things for me feeling I can't wrap my mind around no cultural impact. It's just the view plane. So one, I think that's what's specific for me. The view plane and the cultural landscape changes, that's an impact. Water usage and the formulas that are used, I question that. I don't know how long or big the list should be, but those are the things that are surfacing right up in my mind and looking at my notes. But yeah, again, I'll ask for help from the others.
I like what Gene said, that what we decide here or we vote on may impact future developers as they do their apps and stuff like that. So that's good.
if again, the LPC voted to defer action until the CRC had a chance to review the proposed project, right? So you can sort of say, as it's being proposed to you today, right? In those materials, as it's sort of the snapshot of that project now. You're now in this meeting having a chance to review the proposed project for impacts, and you can add a clarifier there, whether or not they're significant or not, on the overall cultural landscape, and whether those impacts, significant or not, have been minimized or mitigated, again, based on what's being presented here, the CIA, so forth and so on. I agree with Gene, it may not, while that's great, I would say it is most helpful to sort of be specific, which we are regarding with that second motion regarding the walls, for example, which will, I believe, you could ask the applicant this, but that may dictate the access as well. If you can't touch the walls, then that Mackay partial access might be PAL. But yeah, so you could make that motion in the context of what the LPC asked this body to look at. And maybe that's one way to do it. Just a suggestion. Idea.
I have a question. Are we allowed to use qualifying adjective type words? I heard the word frustrating being used. I heard the word maybe concerning, maybe I'm making that up, but is there any sense to use Commissioner Kukule's language? The CRC finds that the statement of no significant, or, as proposed based on the CIA, the CRC finds that the statement of no significant impact is concerning, or that there may be additional information that could be researched or considered by the CAB, because now we've given them that I don't want to say authority, but that's what I mean. That insight, they're going to be intimate, right?
Well, then perhaps it's a revised motion or an additional motion for that CAB to further investigate that level of impact. But using, I don't know, Gene, I'll let you opine in on the use of descriptive terms, but I'm not sure how useful it is outside of personal catharsis to use sort of those terms and emotion. Reason and justification behind the motion, sure. But anyway, that's just my staff opinion.
Do you have some comments on that, Gene?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So with this new advisory board, they could look at how to enhance the cultural landscape rather than impact it, because you can have a positive impact or a negative impact. So if we could have them doing something that, looking at the use of native plants, that'll also be fire resistant. So there's ways to help recreate what has been lost in the cultural landscape. I don't know if that's an action or without, just something to consider. Habitat for some of the species that were mentioned. It also helps with the VI, right? If we have a hardened landscape, you get runoff. So I'm thinking how they could, again, I don't like to use the term mitigate, but how we could enhance the landscape.
If we can articulate that into a motion, we currently don't have a motion on the floor.
You could recommend that the developer applicant utilize, up to 100% native plants, shrubs, and trees if you wanted to. I mean, you could go that far. It's a recommendation. But obviously there's stronger cultural enhancement opportunities with Hawaiian native plants rather than others. Is that the gist? Am I getting at it a little bit?
Yeah. No, I just think when we use water hungry species, people want to have everybody have a lawn, everybody wants to have green. And they bring in
again, sorry to interrupt, but if somebody can turn the thought into a motion so that we can have something to discuss, that's where we need to get to right now.
I move they use 100% native plants that would have been found in that landscape.
Drought tolerant.
Pardon?
Drought.
Drought tolerant. Yeah, that's what they would have been found there.
Yeah.
That drought tolerant species that would have been native to that landscape to enhance the habitat and the cultural landscape.
Second.
Well, no, oh, never mind.
Right. Motion and a second.
So I'd like to open that up for discussion. I think my first question is for my own clarity. Did we not get a motion from Commissioner Kukule? We went from a thought and it never got seconded? Okay. Sorry, I didn't want to.
Yeah, I
change
thought we were
direction.
talking about the cultural no impact significance. Did we move to something else? Sorry.
That one never quite got articulated and never turned into a second. So while you're discussing native plants, you might in the back of your minds consider how to re-articulate that one into a motion, and then somebody can second that.
Yeah.
Can
well,
I, sorry.
Well, even with, yeah, sorry, I guess in maybe, you know, even in discussion about native plants and what kind of native plants will go into that place and would be appropriate, you know, you need additional information from people who actually are from that place as well. And you know, and kind of also speaking about the idea of no impact, I think what comes to mind for me is that we don't have enough information to make that statement. That's part of the problem. And that's why we're asking for this cultural advisory board. So, you know, it's like making a statement that there's no impact, but I don't think there's enough information yet from our cultural resources to be able to make that statement completely and honestly just yet. And so for either of those motions or almost motions, I think there's, you know.
What if we said something, we disagree with the statement of no significant cultural impact and that it needs further analysis from those lineal and cultural descendants with specific knowledge about the cultural landscape of this area?
Yeah.
Trying to get there.
Yeah, I agree. And also like that the view plane thing I think is really important, you know, like and that maybe go beyond even our lineal descendants and cultural practitioners. That's like people who just live there and live that place and look up to those mountains every day. You know, what their connection is to that. That has not been fully fleshed out, and for me to be able to see in any of these documents so forth. So there's a much broader scale analysis that I think should be done. And again, I think, you know, you guys picked a really tough place to develop something because, you know, the level of scrutiny for this is going to be high. And if you think we're being rough on you now, wait till you try to actually get this thing going and people like come out of the woodwork, you know, so it's better for us to discuss these things now, I think.
So could we simplify it to say that we disagree with that there is no significant impact? And
we actually are, sorry, we're actually still, you have a motion about native plants on the floor now. We need to work through first. You could amend it, but my recommendation would be that you vote on the native plant one and then somebody put forward your significant impact motion separately.
I agree. It's a little bit harder to amend the existing motion if with this detail. Could we please call for a vote? And I guess the only other option would be, no, let's not do that. Let's call for a vote on this motion.
Okay.
To move to use 100% native plants, drought tolerant, found in the native landscape.
Yeah, and I'll go back and listen to get the verbatim. Commissioner Six.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Kealani.
Aye.
Chair Spielman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kinney.
Aye.
Commissioner Halmea.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. And now I'd like to ask for a motion on the last thing we were discussing, which is the no significant impact.
Holomua, Holomua.
Yeah, I would so love to holomua if I had the right words. So that the CRC or my motion, I would like to make a motion that the Cultural Resource Commission, again, Jean, can we use words like disagrees with the finding of a no significant impact? And yeah, is that enough?
We might want to, we could, oh yeah, we could certainly start this motion now and discuss this on its merits. Yeah, okay. So I heard a motion from Commissioner Ku'ule and a second by Commissioner Desmond. I'd like to open it up for discussion. The motion.
Quick. So on this, so we no significant impact to the cultural landscape. Is that what we're talking about? Right?
Yes.
Do I have that right, Kool-Aid?
Yes. Yep.
Because that would include view shed, all the things that Commissioner Kinney was mentioning, as well as Commissioner Kool-Aid and Commissioner Haumea.
Yeah, that is absolutely appropriate and within your purview to make, make that finding of significance or non-significance. That's right from your rules for projects. So.
Okay, perfect. So is it good as it stands as the motion is?
If what I'm hearing, and I'll paraphrase and just tell me if this is right, but the CRC is making a motion that the project as proposed represents a significant impact to the cultural resources found within the area.
Correct. Absolutely.
Right.
And I do want to add, if I can, some of the Kanaka element, the human connection to that. So it is the landscape, it is the cultural resources thereof, but it's even further. It's they're not standalones. I mean, in a way, right? We're all connected. It's the clouds, the people. So somehow to add in the
cumulative
human
impacts, perhaps, maybe the
cultural landscape.
That there may be cumulative impact. It's the planning term that pops in my head, but again, I don't want to bias your thoughts.
Yes, cumulative for sure. It's the pilina, the connection, the relation. I just want, because right now that covers the Aina part of it, the cultural resources within the cultural landscape, to include the human inhabitants, perhaps. Maybe that might be a good add on to add Kanaka into it. The human inhabitants, that's non-exclusive to OEV, because many others that are not native to this landscape live there. So if we can just put the human inhabitants, then that includes all of us, everybody.
Would staff, Kevin, would you please read back the motion as it stands that we're discussing?
I did the last one. I'm gonna let Kim do this one as I'm smiling at her and she was taking notes.
So you guys need to let me know if this is correct. I have the CRC finds the project presents significant cumulative impacts to the cultural landscape.
And from your rules, you may add historic assets within the cultural landscape. I know historic assets is a rule term for y'all.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I want to not assume that it's implied that there's the Kanaka human in what you just read, Kim, because it is implied in the cultural context. We are a part of this cultural landscape. We're not removed from it. We're not a part of it, not connected to it. So I guess I am okay with how it reads, but everybody else please chime in that because I don't want to just imply or assume that that's covered, but it is
Could human inhabitants be added to that motion as a specific thing, specific call out?
Can I just read the definition of a cultural landscape from an anthropological perspective? It's just a place with many layers of history that evolves through design and use over time. So it includes the people, the plants, the animals, and as we know, we call it historic palimpsest, the layers of use over time, ranching, all those things are all part. And then you have the realms, the Wao Kanaka, the Wao, you have all these other things that are more metaphysical and less tangible, but I think that all makes up a cultural landscape. It needs to be considered, all those, both the tangible and intangible.
Thank you for that definition and description. Super helpful.
Mahalo. So it is inclusive, Maikai. We can rest assured then.
Okay.
Call for the vote.
Give me a second.
So we have a motion and a second, and we've discussed. Or any other questions, or would it be okay now if I call for a vote?
Vote's fine.
I'm going to call for a vote, and staff, can I ask for your help on a roll call vote?
Yeah. Commissioner Kailani,
Aye.
Commissioner Hamea,
Aye.
Commissioner Six,
Aye.
Chair Spielman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kinney.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, unanimous. Then just to rock and roll, there's a short list of other possible motions, which included things like access. And the other one I had on my list was burial access and parking, especially for lineal descendants, in terms of protocol and how that's established and maintained. And I think those would be specifics that we're looking at. And of course, it's open for any other motions, but you just driving the bus.
You could also revise, if you weren't comfortable making definitive motions regarding those topics now, you could also refine your first motion and specifically request that Cultural Advisory Board to provide recommendations for those things. The access, I'll leave it to the applicant to mention whether or not you could make specific motion regarding the access right now. That could be a standalone motion saying that you don't like the Mackay, or you want this, or only Nani Loa, or something like that. And you could make a separate motion as well. To the applicant to make sure that there is, defined, dedicated access for folks to visit the burial preservation site. Or you could wrap those two things up and and hand those over to the Cultural Advisory Board that you created in the first motion to sort of have a report back later.
Could we make a motion? Could we leave the motions that have passed and been voted on as stands, and then add a motion here that the CAB will consider X, Y, and Z, and those X, Y, and Z are things determined by us?
Yeah.
Okay. And then report back to us. Sorry, I'm not supposed to make a motion.
No, that's in the realm as well.
Okay. I guess that's where I'm looking at it, is we've established this entity. Now let's give them something to do, and let's give them some specifics. That's kind of where I was headed with that.
Right. And then, and then maybe that final standalone motion is, please come back. we
need some more information, I think, to Commissioner Kinney's point.
I just meant to make sure that the intent of the CAB is that you hear back from them.
Yeah.
Right.
Please. Yeah. Commissioner Kool-Aid, you did a fantastic job on the last two motions. Thank you.
Aaron, oh my God. Okay.
I know it's not easy to come up with the words on the spot.
Aaron, I apologize for interrupting. I have to leave. I have a previous commitment, but I just want to thank you and the commission for your time today. I know it's a lot to go over, and appreciate and look forward to whatever input you have. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate it.
I have to leave pretty soon.
Yeah. We should wrap up. We're running out of time and quorum.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So I'm probably not the best one to make this motion. Somebody else want to take a shot at it?
Aaron, it would be okay if you did that.
Oh, yeah? Okay, I would love to make this motion. Then I jump right in here and say that I'd like to make a motion that the CAB or CAG, its group or board, It takes into consideration certain specific elements of the project. For example, not trying to be all inclusive here, but for example, the access and specifically the relationship of the access to the Kuikini wall. And also burial access and parking for lineal descendants. I mean, that's a catch-all. There's a lot to that just alone, but that's kind of the motion, I think, the way I see it.
Do you? Sorry. Okay. Do you want to also include the management of any preservation
I was just thinking
for the CAB to talk about? I know Matt had mentioned their preference was HOA. I think there were some other ideas out there too. Does the board want to do that?
Yeah, I think we should add
With this.
management of any cultural preserves as well.
Yes,
So that
please.
they could, look at the
Okay.
access to burials, management of those areas, including burials, as well as other architectural features and access, and then access would include parking, correct?
Well, the way I was
Yeah.
looking at access was the primary route of emergency vehicles and people
it.
coming off the road to
Got
the
it.
site.
Got
The burial.
I was thinking of access to the preserves and the burial, so.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah.
say that would be a whole other thing, but it's one of the specifics the CAB can look at. And I agree,
Right.
it should be included in there because at some point, whether it's an association, CRCs or something else, there's gonna have to be documentation of that for home ownership type of stuff.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I need to leave. Happy holidays, everybody. God bless. Mahalo kia
Can we
koa.
vote real quick?
Hold on, Des. Let's at least get a
We,
second.
we
on
lose the quorum and the meeting needs to end
My-
as soon as
I
we
live in
lose.
Puna. My flight leaves at 2:30.
Oh, shoot.
Okay, so
Oh, I
So
mean,
we're gonna-
if it's gonna be quick, I'll stay for that, but I gotta
Go.
go.
do we have a motion and a second?
Second,
I haven't heard a second.
second,
Yeah, okay, so Chair Spielman,
Yeah, hang on, I'm coming.
Yes,
yes. Commissioner Halmea,
Aye.
Commissioner Six,
aye.
Oh, we voted.
Commissioner Kinney,
Aye.
Commissioner Kekalani.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
I call for a recount.
Yeah. See you later, Uncle Des. Travel
thank
safe.
you, thank you, Uncle
Happy
Des.
holidays. Yeah.
Happy
Peace and
holidays.
happiness. Mahalo kia koa.
Aye. We hope.
Nice to meet you virtually.
And I think now that we lose quorum, do we officially cancel the meeting or end the meeting? Do we have to call for a vote? Do I have to do, there's a Mr. Alameda that wanted to do non-business and.
Well, hold
I have to
on.
leave too, sorry.
Okay. Commissioner Six also has to leave. Chair Clark is still somewhere in the wings. He just recused himself from this item. So he can come back,
But
right?
technically, the meeting, yeah.
Or
He could
no?
come
Stay
back if
another
we don't
15.
lose, so long as we still have 5 people.
Which I believe we would. No?
Don't. When she
One,
leaves and
two,
Matt comes back, we're still gonna be one short.
we're still gonna be one short.
We could stay for like 15 more minutes. I am picking someone up at the
Yeah.
airport. so-
Okay, we got about 15 minutes then.
That's good.
This-
We can do
Are we
business in
closing-
15
Are we
minutes.
closing this weekend?
Hold on. So I think that closes this agenda item.
Yes.
Right? Okay, great. So we can move on. Yes,
Well,
Chairman.
before
go
we
ahead.
move on, we do need Matt back. Because right now we do not have a quorum, so technically nothing is happening. The meeting is essentially in recess until we get Matt back online.
Okay, we're working
Happy
to get him
holidays,
back right
everyone.
now. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you for
And
your
thank you,
time.
Matt.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Talk to you
you.
soon.
We can follow up. We're reaching out to Matt right now.
Thank you.
Okay, he's on his way.
And do I relinquish this position? Great, okay. Thank you.
You'll
Thank
be off the
you.
hook as soon as you can hand it back to Matt.
And Ashley, thank you for sending the share script. I did get that. Thank you.
Okay, here comes Matt. So we're having a CRC meeting again now that he's back.
Okay. As temporary chair for the one agenda item, I am relinquishing the chairmanship back to Chairman Clark. Have at it.
Mahalo. I hope I didn't miss anything.
So sorry, Commissioner Clark, we've closed the business and we're into announcements. Mike Alameda is here with the new administration. As we discussed, he wanted to say hello. So I'll let you two.
Okay.
I'll hand that up.
Welcome, Micah.
Oh, sorry.
Do you want to give a short introduction?
I would love to. Aloha, everyone. My name is Micah Alameda. I'm an executive assistant with Mayor Alameda. Just to clear that up, I'm sure people are wondering, my grandpa and his dad are brothers. However, I have merit, and I will explain that. I'm 36 years old. I'm born and raised in Kilka'a on Hawaiian Homestead. My wife is born and raised in Kukui Haile. I share that because she's the leader of our house, and her lifestyle is heavily weighed on mine, and that is who we are. So Kukui Haile, to visualize small town, humble people, that's who we are. I graduated from Kamehameha schools here in Kea'au. I went to UH Hilo. From there, I had time at the legislature where I got to work for 2 sessions, came back home. I got to work a couple council calendars here in the county council. And then I stayed home and I helped raise our oldest daughter, who's 9 today. After that, I went to Naleo TV for about 4.5 years where I was on-screen talent, I was marketing, I was a producer. I kind of did a lot of things. And then I did some independent contract work for the last couple of years. I helped out the Hawaii Island Fentanyl Task Force. I kukua'd Big Island Substance Abuse Council. And then on November 9th, Mayor Kimo called and said, hey, why don't you come on over and help us facilitate boards and commissions? It sounds like we could really use some help there. So I said, of course, cuz when Kuleana calls, we answer. So here we are. I'm just going to be one of the people behind the scenes helping facilitate the boards and commissions going forward. And that is why I wanted to take this small time. I know you guys are busy. This meeting was going on forever. I think I just want to say mahalo for your service. This is not easy work. It is volunteer. You have to disclose your finances and all that kind of stuff. This is a big lift, and we want to mahalo you. The mayor mahalos you. He knows how serious this work is. And I'm going to be the person that from our office that will be here to kokua you and the work that needs to be done. Like I said, we've been going forever. I don't want to take up too much time. I'll put my email and my number in the chat, and feel free to reach out to me anytime. We are here to help. Back to you, team. Aloha.
Mahalo.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.
Chair, could I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Alameda, are you the person we would facilitate with if we're trying to fill seats that are going to be vacant? Or is that like a council member thing or?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm the person. Yep. So I just put my email in the chat and my direct line. This is I'm going to try and be at my desk as much as I can. And this is where you can reach me.
And Gene, it's okay if we reach out directly to Mr. Alameda? Okay, thank you.
Yes, definitely.
I've had the pleasure to meet Jean, thanks to her and Corporation Council. I got to meet many of the hardcore players, the hammers who keep this all together, right? The deputy corporation councils, the secretaries, the clerical staff. These are the continuity. Every 4 years when new mayor comes, maybe 8, but other than that, it's Jean. It's people that work in the county who are putting this together, and we are just here to kokua. I'm here to help make that easier any way that I can. So vacancies, yes, please call me about them. If you are a board member now, a commissioner, and you're thinking about resigning, or you want to, please, yes, please reach out, talk to me, talk story, because ultimately we're gonna have to fill that vacancy and whatnot. So yeah, just consider us a friend and an ally.
I think Commissioner Spielman brought it up because I believe we have 2 vacancies starting next month on the board. So yes, anything you can do to help fill that would be great.
Thank you, Matthew. And we are working with the council, right? The county council, they have agendas. All of this would have to go on those agendas for the next meeting. Those agendas are full already. So we can't even get on to a committee agenda for the next meeting. But I'm going to try and get nominees before the council on their January 21st meeting. That would be in Kona. But that would be our very first slot where we can fill some vacancies, would be that January 21st. Thank you, Matthew, though. I'm looking at it all, right? As you can imagine, 30 plus boards and commissions. There are vacancies almost everywhere, not everywhere, but almost. So I'm looking at them. I'm looking at kind of just, the business of the county needs to move forward. Windward Planning plays a big role in the business. Cultural Resources Commission plays a big role. So these are brackets that we're looking at, and we're going to prioritize for the January 21st council committee meeting.
Mahalo.
No, mahalo to you folks. Really, that's all I have to say.
Trying to get out of here. So do we need me to vote on anything? No, not you, not because you. We're just trying to figure out because we don't know if there's anything. It's my first time on the board.
All right.
Congratulations and thank you.
I think we need to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Yes, that's fine. The question is, one of the questions is, can Janet vote on those minutes if she wasn't on the commission, or do we need to?
Yes.
Yes, she can.
Yes, she can.
Yes, she can. Okay, well then, yes, approval of minutes, Chair.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the Cultural Resources Commission meeting held on June 12th, 2024? Can I get a second for that motion? Or
so moved.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Can I get a second for that motion?
Second.
Thank you. It was moved by Commissioner Spielman and seconded by Commissioner Six. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor say aye.
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 Bye. Nice to meet all you folks.
Opposed say nay. Okay, minutes are approved as circulated.
Thanks so much.
Mahalo.
Okay, the next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. Staff, are there any additional announcements?
Yeah, briefly, you have
Kevin, sorry, but
because we lost quorum, so no.
Having walked out the door, we
We're
don't
done.
have quorum anymore. Sorry.
So I can't even talk.
So-
Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess
Technically, you are adjourned.
this concludes the items on the agenda. Can I? Oh, I can't even make a motion, huh?
No, well, you could just announce that you are adjourned.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month.
Well.